You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
All writers are prone to becoming so attached to our characters and stories that we struggle to see why a passage may not be working. It takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing to full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, shaping stories into masterpieces that can stand the test of time. Editing services are provided for all genres and all age categories. Services range from critiques of the short story through to the line edits of the full-length novel and copy editing for those preparing for publication. We also offer assistance on generating a writer's bio for your website, as well as help with those book blurbs and promotional material. We won't abandon you to the masses. We want to celebrate with you in your successes. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services and prices, visit us at blackwolfeditorial.com.
Individuals and businesses with tax problems, listen carefully. Do you feel like you're losing control over your finances? If you owe over $10,000 in back taxes or have unfiled tax returns, we can help you take back control. The IRS is the largest and most aggressive collection agency in the world, and they can seize your bank account, garnish your paycheck, close your business, and file criminal charges. Take control of your tax problems now by calling the experts at Tax Mediation Services and take advantage of the Fresh Start program and new laws that may allow us to negotiate a settlement for the lowest amount possible. Our team of tax attorneys and enrolled agents can stop collections and get you protected so you can take control of your financial future. Tax Mediation Services is accredited by the Better Business Bureau. Call now for a free case review and a price protection guaranteed quote.
Call Tax Mediation Services now at 800-610-9050. That's 800-610-9050. 800-610-9050.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
This is Slickery Trigger for Rebel Road Tactical. With proper care and feeding, your pistol will be ready when you need it, there to save your life. Shouldn't your gear be that good? Whether you need a holster for comfortable everyday carry or a tough-as-nails holster for your next training course, Rebel Road Tactical has what you need. Check us out on the web at rebelroadtactical.com.
Tired of paying outrageous prices for Viagra? Well, we have great news for you. Now you can finally get Viagra at huge discounts. Healthy Man allows you to save up to $500 on Viagra. Why pay U.S. pharmacy prices of $15 per pill or more when you can get Viagra for less than $3 a pill? Call today and get 40 Viagra pills for only $99. This can cost as much as $600 at your local pharmacy. You can't afford not to call us. If you want Viagra at the lowest prices, never pay $15 a pill pharmacy prices again. Get Viagra for less than $3 a pill. Call 1-800-516-7602 today and save up to $500 and get 40 pills for just $99. Healthy Man is fast, easy, and affordable. Operators are waiting at 1-800-516-7602 to take your call right now. Call 1-800-516-7602. That's 1-800-516-7602. Again, 1-800-516-7602.
The following message contains a special offer for listeners of this station. Are you a man over 40? Are you constantly looking for the nearest bathroom? Do you wake up multiple times a night to use the bathroom? Right now, Perfect Prostate is sending out free bottles of their groundbreaking new formula to listeners of this station. Perfect Prostate Formula was developed by medical doctor Mitchell Fleischer, and its ingredients have been clinically studied to reduce your frequent nighttime bathroom visits and promote healthy urine flow. Right now, preferred customers get their first bottle of Perfect Prostate absolutely free. There's nothing to lose. Perfect Prostate is guaranteed to reduce that constant urge to use the bathroom, especially at night, and promote healthy urine flow. Don't wait. Call now for your free bottle. Just pay shipping and processing. Dial 1-800-675-0251. That's 1-800-675-0251. Supplies are limited. One free bottle per household. Call now. Dial 1-800-675-0251. That's 1-800-675-0251.
Hey folks, I want to introduce you to a friend of mine, Dr. Richard Harden. We are on the same mission, which is waking up America. We just have different paths. So stay tuned for some information on how you can keep up with Richard and all his work.
Visit Richard's website at raharden.com. That's the World Wide Web at RAHARDIN.com. At his website, you can see a summary of the 6 books he has written, where purchases may be made. He also has a link to 18 videos on YouTube and several blogs about Christian beliefs. If you prefer, visit Amazon.com/Kindle and type in Richard Harden to see and purchase his books.
Every day, the men and women of the United States Marine Corps stand ready to defend the American way of life. The few, the proud, the Marines.
This is Slickery Trigger for Rebel Road Tactical. With proper care and feeding, your pistol will be ready when you need it. There to save your life. Shouldn't your gear be that good? Whether you need a holster for comfortable everyday carry or a tough-as-nails holster for your next training course, Rebel Road Tactical has what you need. Check us out on the web at rebelroadtactical.com.
From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the Internet, we're coming to you live from the CCRS studios, WNJC 1360. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard. You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
Welcome, everybody, and welcome, fellow patriots. Welcome once again to the Conservative Commandos radio show. I'm Rick Trader, coming to you live from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network at WNJC 1360 in Philadelphia and around the world on the internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, AM, FM 24/7. We're everywhere, we're everywhere. Great to have you with us today, and also joining me as my co-host is the president and CEO of AUN-TV.com, Dana Allen. Dana, welcome to the Conservative Commandos radio show.
Thank you, Rick. It's great to be here again this week.
Great to have you with me, my friend. So what's new on AUN?
Well, something that's just happened is that Nancy Pelosi, believe it or not, has been basically reelected as the Democrat leader in the House of Representatives. And this has been done despite the fact that her colleagues really actually think that she's crazy. And if there's a viewer out there that doubts that, they can watch a video that we've done, and this video is going viral. We put it up a couple of years ago, but now it's being watched far more than it was in the past. It's being watched by about 2,000 people a day, and it's the name of the video is Another Pelosi Meltdown. Is she mentally competent? Is the Empress naked? And it is a collage of clips of things that she said that are just absolutely crazy. And this thing is just, people love this video, and they're spreading it around and so forth. And so if people want to watch this video, they can go to aun-tv.com. And it's the top, actually the second story down on the front page. And we have another video of her where she just yesterday, I believe it was, or Sunday, said on Face the Nation that she doesn't think people want a new direction, and they're very happy with the Democratic Party the way it is.
Yeah, it's very funny, Dana. She says it's not the message that we have that people rejected. We just failed to get that message out.
That's right. And, you know, it's not just the Republicans. Like, she got into a big fight, and we have the fight on the video with a Republican Congressman, Dan Marino. I mean, not that, his first name is Marino, from the Northeast. And the interviewer from Fox News asked him, he says, you know, are you surprised that, you know, she went, you know, sort of crazy on the floor, and, you know, the Sergeant Arms had to pull her off the floor? He said, no. He says, nothing she does anymore surprises me. So it's just not the Republicans that think this, it's the Democrats. And in some of these clips, you'll see her saying things that are totally irrational. After she lost the House to the Republicans, she gave a speech saying, well, you know, we lost the majority, but we still have the gavel. Well, having the gavel means you are in the majority. And all of her colleagues that are around her look at her, oh, there goes our crazy aunt again, you know. And then she finally catches herself after, you know, this painful silence and says, well, we don't have the gavel anymore, but we have our own gavel, you know. And you know, so why isn't she removed from power? We talked about this a little bit before we went on the air, Rick, is, you know, your guess is they fear her. And
yes.
I think that's it. You know, and there's one, you know, brave soul that came forward this time. His name's Tim Ryan, Democrat of Ohio, who tried to, you know, get her job. And one of the people that supported him, Representative Kurt Schrader from Oregon, said, you know, the mood of the Congress is, you know, the caucus is frustrated, upset, resigned, but at this point they're ready to move on. And he said, you know, basically he said she can be the Democrat leader for as long as she wants to. That, you know, in other words,
yep.
He's someone opposed to her, but he says she has such control over the Democrats in Congress. She's basically empress for life in the House. And you know, right now, maybe this isn't a great danger to us because she is the minority leader, but she was the majority leader, and she could again. And in that case, she's only 2 heartbeats away from being the president of the United States. And I think it's the obligation of these people in Congress, her own members, to say, you know, we have to remove her. You know, she's, you know, there's a large portion of the American population that thinks she's mentally incompetent. They go on Google and they search for terms, and the most popular terms is Pelosi senile, is Pelosi sick, Pelosi on drugs. That's what when
is Pelosi on Botox.
Well, that one probably doesn't cause mental problems, but I guess, who knows? Maybe you found a new medical correlation. So,
that's just I'm looking at your videos on AUN TV, Dana, and I'm looking at this picture of I don't think people want a new direction, and her face is all pulled and drawn. John, did we get that yet? No. Okay. As soon as we get that audio transferred over to John Forsyth Jr., Dana, I think we'll play that for our audience.
Excellent.
Where Pelosi says, I don't think people want a new direction. And, well, Dana, I think that this is all very good news. I think it's all very good news for the country that the Democrat Party is so disillusioned that they think that they didn't do anything wrong. They didn't do anything wrong. They just failed to get their message out. People just don't understand this. You know, good. Let them think that. Let them keep electing the same old failed leadership like Nancy Pelosi. The other thing that came out today, Dana, that kind of in the same light, how stuck on old the Democrat Party is. Joe Biden said today that he hasn't ruled out running in 2020. I mean, in 2020, this man is going to be 78 years old. Yep. God knows what mental state he'll be in at that time. Well, considering the mental state he's in this time.
That was my question, Rick.
Hey, Dana, hold on just that, because John Forsythe Jr. just got this audio set up, and we're going to play this. This is Nancy Pelosi on Face the Nation.
The Democratic Party is in a moment of questioning about its identity. You were reelected to lead the Democrats in the House. What do you tell Democrats who want a new direction? And then go to you, what are you going to do differently?
Well, I don't think that people want a new direction. Our values unify us, and our values are about supporting America's working families. That is one that everyone is in agreement on. What we want is a better connection of our message to working families in our country, and that clearly in the election showed that message wasn't coming through. But we are united in terms of the security of our country, which is our first responsibility, to be smart and strong and not reckless in how we protect the American people, strong in how we protect our economy.
Well, there you go, Dana. There she's saying that they just didn't get her message, that they don't want us to change. I guess that's why that Bernie Sanders, that communist, Marxist, socialist senator from Vermont, Bernie Sanders, nearly knocked off Hillary Clinton, because they don't want us to change. Our constituents don't want the Democrat Party to change. Mm-hmm. We just need a better connection with our message.
It's a very common human trait of sort of believing what you want to believe instead of what really is. And she's in denial, and the party seems to be in denial, because we'll talk later about their planning to put pretty much an avowed communist, a Muslim, is the chairman of the Democratic Party. And so, in the past there was some correction, after the caucus, and, they went to Clinton, who, was not a good guy, but his public policies weren't as radically, Marxist or whatever you want to call it, as Dukakis's were. But have they done that lately? Have they, like the only moderate left in the Democratic Party anymore, I think, is Joe Manchin from West Virginia. Can you think of any others?
That's not dead air. That's me thinking, Dana.
There used to be a lot. Maybe there's a couple others, but there used to be like Sam Nunn from Georgia, and it's hard to think of any moderates that, there's a lot of the voters who are Democratic Party voters that are moderates, but the actual people in office, it's hard to think of any who are senators.
Well, even that Joe Manchin, he might not be a Democrat for all that much longer. He's up for re-election in 2018. Joe Manchin is up for re-election. West Virginia went for Trump by a 28% margin over Hillary Clinton. Joe Manchin's in trouble. Joe Manchin may jump ship.
Yep. Oh, there's nothing.
He met with Trump the other day. Joe Manchin met with Trump.
I've been expecting it. I haven't read any rumors on it.
And my thinking is that he's probably offered to Trump that he is going to jump ship. Just don't put up anybody against me in 2020, 2018.
So he's trying to get a deal.
Yeah, I think he's trying to get a deal. Which makes sense for him.
Absolutely. That makes a lot of sense, and you're probably right. I've been thinking the exact same thing. Heard no rumors. I just think he probably will switch to the Democrats. Now, I hope not to overwork John here, but in the previous video, because he did such a good job of stripping that audio out of the video, there's two sections where Nancy Pelosi, the first one is she repeats the word affordable like 11 times in a row.
The same video? Well, we can, John, you still have that video up? We can replay that for you, Dana, if you'd like.
It's the other video that's just before. It's on the same page.
Oh, okay. The one that's 527.
Exactly, and she says two things. She says that 300 million Americans will lose their jobs per month unless the stimulus package is put into place. And then she goes on this rant about that Obamacare is affordable, and it's the people on that we're interviewing are we're putting up this video. Afterwards, the guy goes, "Wow."
Well, what will because the video is over 5 minutes long, Dana, I'm sorry, George is on Thursday, Dana's on Tuesday. Do you know about what time mark it is?
Yeah, I can give that to you because we're going to go on break pretty soon, and I'd be glad to give you the timing.
Oh, in fact, we're past break, so let's take the break. See what happens when you're having fun. And you are listening to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Dana Allen and Rick Trader, coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network at WNJC 1360 and around the world on the internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, AM, FM 24/7. Avoid disappointment and future regret. Dana and I will be right back. You don't go anywhere.
They say I'm crazy. I really don't care. That's my prerogative. They say I'm nasty, but I...
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos radio network. We are establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired of the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos radio network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. and Saturdays from 2 to 6 p.m. on WNJC Radio, 1360 on your AM dial, or around the world on the internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our website, CCRSnetwork.com, for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where now even more newsmakers go to be heard.
This is Pastor Christina Lamanier, chaplain for the INRA.
And I'm her husband, J.D. Manier. We help co-host on the Conservative Commandos radio show, and we want to sincerely thank our listeners who turned out to vote in mass to elect Donald Trump, Governor Mike Pence, and conservative congressional candidates across our nation.
Against incredible odds, you helped create the strongest GOP team to take the reins of power in Washington since the 1920s. General George Patton said, "It's the unconquerable soul of man, not the nature of the weapon he uses, that ensures victory." We salute all of you for taking a stand for truth, freedom, and defending our constitutional form of government. Let us continue to pray for our nation and for God's blessings. May God save the United States of America.
You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Dana Allen and yours truly, Rick Trader. For rebroadcasts, please check out our website, ccrshow.com or ccrsnetwork.com, or at 11 p.m., log on to highplainsdailynews.com. But you can hear our show and all the shows that are part of the Conservative Commandos radio network any time of the day by calling 832-999-1199. You don't need an app. You don't need to download anything. You don't even need a radio or a computer. You just need a telephone and this number, 832-999-1199. So, Dana, we're still downloading that video. Give us a couple of minutes on that. But You know, Dana, it always cracks me up when I see a Democrat giving advice to the Republicans. And I'm always thinking, Republicans, I hope you're not listening. Don't pay attention to what they're saying.
Right.
But in this case, I have a message for the Democrats. Don't change a thing. Don't change a thing. Don't change your leadership. Don't change your message. Don't change the way you deliver the message. Don't change a thing. You guys are perfect in every way.
They have a winning formula.
They do, absolutely. Don't change a thing. So that's my message for the Democrats.
Good. Well, we'll have here fairly soon. It's only 37 seconds, and it has like 3 of her best hits or whatever in these 37 seconds. And after you listen to this, folks, you're going to think, no wonder her colleagues in the Congress think that she's crazy. And this is actually a serious issue. They are not doing. If she was a general in the Army, she would have been relieved of her duty. If she was a doctor in the hospital, she would have been removed, from practice. And she's in a more important position than that. And why her colleagues, don't do what's right as opposed to just fearing her because she has a reputation for being very vicious if anyone, doesn't support her when she's in a leadership role and she takes away all their privileges and so forth. But they need to put the country first. And then, of course, according to your theory, you don't want them to do anything because...
Nope, don't change a thing.
Well, for the next 2 years, you may have a great point there, Rick. If she ever became the majority leader again, I don't want someone like her 2 heartbeats away from the...
That's why I don't want them to change it.
Change her. A self-fulfilling prophecy. Okay, gotcha. So then later in the show, we have 2 guests, and they are Trevor Loudon, who I've had the pleasure of meeting at CPAC. In fact, I think you may have introduced me to him there on Radio Row. And he is, one of the very best-known anti-communists in the world today. He's from New Zealand, and he's created a movie called The Enemies Within. And the reason why I wanted to have him on today is that the Democrats are planning to elect as their chairman someone who is a communist, openly. And so it's Ellison. And when I heard that name, that Keith Ellison was going to be the Democratic chair, I immediately thought of Trevor's movie, The Enemies Within, because he identified him as like the #1 communist in the Democratic Party. And he had videotape of him, proving this. And then on top of that, he's a Muslim. That doesn't disqualify him necessarily, but he's the type of Muslim you don't want to be in office. He's tied to the Muslim Brotherhood, terrorist organizations, and then Louis Farrakhan is a rather extreme racist, and he used to be a spokesman for Louis Farrakhan. I mean, hello, what are they thinking? What do you think about this, Rick?
Well, he's not the only Muslim that's in the U.S. Congress. There's Andre Carson, who's a congressman from Indianapolis, who's also a Muslim. But, Dana, I'm sorry to tell you this, but I don't have that much a problem with it, and I'll tell you why. Exactly what I was saying before. My message to the Democrat Party, don't change a thing. You're doing everything right, guys. I love what you're doing. Please don't change a thing. Don't change your leadership, your methods, your message. Don't change a thing. Hey, Dana, we do have that audio up whenever you're ready.
Excellent. Let's go to it.
Okay.
We just couldn't be prouder. I believe that it's a winner. And by the way, it's called the Affordable Care Act. It's called the Affordable Care Act. I know you didn't intend any compliment or derogatory, but it's called the Affordable Care Act. Affordable. Affordable. There's a reason. Affordable.
Affordable if you make $1 million a year.
Affordable.
By reading on that we do not have an economic recovery package, 500 million Americans lose their jobs.
But we have to pass the bill so that you can find out what is in it.
All right, Dana, I think her message was it is affordable, and I maybe you heard my comment while we were watching or listening to this. It's affordable if you have if you make $1 million a year, then it's affordable, I guess.
That's correct.
Because the rates just keep going up and up and up. I mean, people are flabbergasted. It's affordable. It's affordable. It's affordable.
Oh, I didn't know that, Rick.
Yes, it's affordable.
Yeah, my worst increases have come about since she put on. We've made an error here. I made an error. She said that 300 million Americans would lose their jobs per month, and I was wrong. She said 500 million Americans, and there's only about 320 million.
And only about a third of them are actually working at the present time.
That means that
we could afford about 1 week of Nancy Pelosi in our economy.
That's right. After about 8 days or so, everyone in America would not have their jobs, according to her. Then I guess people would have to lose their jobs, 3 times a month thereafter. And she didn't even catch herself on that.
Yeah. It's kind of like Barack Obama saying that he has visited all but one of the 57 states. Dana, I hate to do this. We're having so much fun. It's break time once again. I don't know.
Okay.
And you are listening to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Dana Allen and Rick Trader, coming to you live from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network at WNJC 1360 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, the birthplace of liberty. And around the world on the internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, AM, FM 24/7. Today's show, like all our shows, it's brought to you by the First Amendment and protected by the Second. And maybe now we'll have a president who also believes in the Second Amendment. Thank God. We'll be right back. This is Rick Trader, host of the Conservative Commandos radio show.
And I'm John Forsyth, owner of WNJC Radio. Fellow Patriots, the Conservative Commandos radio show is for conservatives, about conservatives, and by conservatives.
We are patriots who want to take our country back from the likes of Barack Obama, Harry Reid, George Soros, and Nancy Pelosi.
But we can't keep up this fight without your critical support today. Can you help? Please go to www.helpccrs.com right now and make a donation by credit card or PayPal. That's www.helpccrs.com.
Our goal is to expose the liberal agenda and distortions. We are fighting to spread the truth about political issues, political leaders, and conservative issues and values.
Our hosts are not paid. In fact, we buy our own airtime, studio time, and pay our own expenses.
We created the show because we are trying to make a difference. So can you help the CCRS expose the truth in 2014 and beyond? Go to www.helpccrs.com.
Help keep the Conservative Commandos radio show on the air by going to www.helpccrs.com and make a donation today to return our country to the conservative roots created by our founding fathers.
This is Pastor Christina Lamanier, chaplain for the INRA.
And I'm her husband, J.D. Manier. We help co-host on the Conservative Commandos radio show, and we want to sincerely thank our listeners who turned out to vote en masse to elect Donald Trump, Governor Mike Pence, and conservative congressional candidates across our nation.
Against incredible odds, you helped create the strongest GOP team to take the reins of power in Washington since the 1920s. General George Patton said, "It's the unconquerable soul of man, not the nature of the weapon he uses, that ensures victory." We salute all of you for taking a stand for truth, freedom, and defending our constitutional form of government. Let us continue to pray for our nation and for God's blessings. May God save the United States of America.
What does it take to be the leader in production systems technology? To be the one company that solves production problems at any plant, for any product, and with any technology? It takes a 30-year record of success. It takes total mastery of complex technologies with a history of delivering success every time, without fail. Only one company can claim that high ground in manufacturing line optimization, data automation, and systems integration, and that's Philadelphia Control Systems. In factories worldwide, Philadelphia Control Systems programs, software, and engineering solutions deliver optimal performance and output flow with a record that can't be matched. Any plant, any product, any technology. Philadelphia Control Systems, the leader in production automation since 1982. 800-335-9811. PCS4automation.com. That's PCS, the number 4, automation.com.
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos radio network. We're establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired as I am about the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos radio network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. on WNJC Radio 1360 a.m. or around the world on the internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our websites, ConservativeCommandosRadioNetwork.com and CCRN.com for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where even more newsmakers go to be heard. From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the internet. We're coming to you live from the CCRS studios. WNJC 1360. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard. You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Dana Allen and yours truly, Rick Trader. For rebroadcast, check out our website, ccrshow.com or ccrsnetwork.com, or at 11 p.m., log on to highplainsdailynews.com, or you can hear our show and all the shows that are part of the Conservative Commandos Network here at WNJC 1360 from your telephone by calling 832-999-1199. Dana Allen, the Donald Trump, the president-elect, continues to make news. Apparently, Ben Carson has agreed to accept. There you go. Wonderful thing. Mine's losing my mind again. Okay, HUD. He's
okay.
He's agreed to take HUD, and also Donald Trump has canceled an order for a new Air Force One, a new 747. You know, Barack Obama were the last one out, so but they were supposed. He ordered a new one for Hillary, price tag $4 billion for one plane. $4 billion. Donald Trump says nope. That's too much money, so he's canceled it.
That's very. I did not know that. So, the Conservative Commandos is the best place to get breaking news.
Well, see, that's what happened when you people on the left coast get up 3 hours later than we people on the East Coast do.
Well,
missed those little details, buddy.
I thought it might be more on the health side for Ben Carson, but that's probably a good idea. What do you think, Connor?
Well, I think it was the right man, wrong job. I would have loved to seen him named Surgeon General. I think it would have been more into his field. Housing and urban development. Well, I guess he grew up in the projects. Maybe he knows more about it than he knows about medicine. I don't know. But I think that Surgeon General might have been more, I don't know, maybe thought Surgeon General is more of a ceremonial position. But remember Edwin Coop? Remember him?
Sure.
He was very active as Surgeon General, and I think that Ben Carson could have made a mark there, but what the heck? I don't make the picks.
Yeah, the thing that you mentioned there, it makes a lot of sense, the fact, because for the listeners that aren't familiar with his background, he grew up actually very poor in Detroit. So he watched the city he grew up, which was very prosperous, become, basically destroyed. And he also, probably watched the effect of welfare. And what the housing, HUD, Housing and Urban Development, is really about is government welfare in one form or another, public housing, et cetera, and it's just a disaster. It's destroyed South Chicago. It just never works. And because of him, I don't know if anyone else that's been in that position has actually lived in those types of conditions. So since he has, he might actually be a great HUD, secretary. So that could be very good. Maybe.
Dana, I was thinking about you today because I got into one of these stupid Facebook debates with some liberals today. I've got like one Facebook friend who's a liberal. His name is Joey, and I like Joey. Joey's a good guy. He's also a comedian. He does a thing every day that I enjoy watching, the Jewish joke of the day. Anyway, we got into one of these things, and one of his liberal friends got on there and started talking about how Barack Obama saved the economy after 2008. And I said, well, 2008 was caused by the Democrats. It was caused by something called the Community Reinvestment Act of 1977. Right. During the Carter administration, they forced banks and mortgage companies to give, I think the intentions were to eliminate redlining. So what they did in this was they forced banks and mortgage companies to lower the requirements for people to get mortgages. And it was doubled down. It was doubled down in the 1990s during the Clinton administration. Okay, so what happened is you had all these people that got mortgages. That's good, except for one thing. They had no ability to pay them back. Okay? So what happened was all these properties foreclosed, which triggered what happened in 2008, right before the election.
Absolutely. And they had debates in Congress about it, and it was Barney Frank was the main proponent of this. And when
it was a Dodd-Frank bill.
That's right. And
that was another part of it.
That's right. And Barney Frank, when people would say, we have to rein in all these mortgages to people that can't afford them, this is going to cause, oh no, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, there's no problems at all, and he'd get mad and shout and everything. It's like 3 months later, what he prevented, trying to prevent this, right. He's probably more responsible than anyone else in the United States. And for those not familiar with Barney Frank, he's a big government liberal Democrat from Massachusetts, a congressman. So yes, you're absolutely right.
Well, where I was getting at is when I was saying I was thinking of you today. This another one of Joey's liberals friends says, "What's wrong with helping the poor and get a house?" Well, how'd that work in Detroit? How did all that federal money, how did all those balloon mortgages how did that work in Detroit, where Detroit's population has gone from 2 million like in the 1960s down to about 700,000 now because of people moving out. And all those houses, I mean, it looks like Berlin in the spring of 1945. You know, when you give people money, they have no ability to pay back. And as collateral, they're putting up the house and they can't pay back. The houses are foreclosed. The people move out. You can't resell the houses. They're in such bad shape. What do you get? You get Detroit of 2016. But the liberal mind just can't wrap their head around that.
Yeah, it's economic ignorance is part of it. The other thing is, it just doesn't hurt those people. It does hurt them, but
it hurts everybody.
It's exactly because it causes the housing collapse, and the people that can afford to make their payments, all of a sudden they're in a $300,000 home that's worth $170,000. They're underwater, and they walk away from it, and then that drives it down to $140,000. I experienced that firsthand.
So how's that helping people? You know, and I was thinking about this, Dana. Bad finances is, in my opinion, the second leading cause of divorces and collapsed families, the other being drugs and alcohol, okay? But finances is one of the major leading causes of the breakup of family. And where do you see this more than in the black community, okay? Dana, I hate to do this break time once again. You are listening to Conservative Commandos with Dana Allen and Rick Trader, coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos Radio Network at WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philadelphia, and around the world on the internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, AM, FM 24/7. I am having a lot of fun today. Mr. John Forsyth Jr. is here, working the boards, getting everything right, keeping the flies away from me. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. We are establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired of the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. and Saturdays from 2 to 6 p.m. on WNJC Radio, 1360 on your AM dial, or around the world on the internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our website, CCRSnetwork.com, for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where now even more newsmakers go to be heard.
This is Pastor Christina Lamanier, chaplain for the INRA.
And I'm her husband, J.D. Manier. We help co-host on the Conservative Commandos radio show, and we want to sincerely thank our listeners who turned out to vote in mass to elect Donald Trump, Governor Mike Pence, and conservative congressional candidates across our nation.
Against incredible odds, you helped create the strongest GOP team to take the reins of power in Washington since the 1920s. General George Patton said, "It's the unconquerable soul of man, not the nature of the weapon he uses, that ensures victory." We salute all of you for taking a stand for truth, freedom, and defending our constitutional form of government. Let us continue to pray for our nation and for God's blessings. May God save the United States of America.
You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
Welcome back to Conservative Commandos with Dana Allen and Rick Trader. For rebroadcast, you can always check out our website, ccrshow.com or ccrsnetwork.com. 11 p.m., highplainsdailynews.com. Or you can hear our show any time of the day from your phone by calling 832-999-1199. Really appreciate you joining us today. And Dana, you mentioned one of our guests today will be Trevor Loudon. Why don't you fill our audience in as to our other guest?
It's Steve Hecht. And he's a graduate of Columbia University. He's a businessman that's lived in Guatemala since 1972, and he's written an article. He just put it out today about immigration, and he says that Guatemala holds the key to defeating illegal immigration. And that's because a lot of the people that come across the Mexican border are actually coming from Guatemala. And so we have put on AUN-TV.com, we've put his article right up on the front page under the international section. And it's a fascinating article. He says that there are hidden motives behind the way that the Obama administration has interacted with Guatemala, and that really what they're doing is, he'll be much better able to explain it, is they have an agenda of trying to push Marxism, communism in Guatemala, and they're altering the way our government interacts with the Guatemalan government to assist that. And so I'm really looking forward to talking with Steve about that. And that brings up another subject, which is, immigration. Just about everything we are told about immigration is a lie. What are we told about immigration? It's always a positive. We'll examine that a little bit. Another thing is that there's no danger of diseases. That's just a paranoid, thing made up by people. And another thing is it has no effect on wages. And this is sad, but there's nothing to back it up. Nothing to back it up. For the United States, some of the worst things that have ever happened is immigration. What is the worst thing that ever happened to the Cherokee Indians? Immigration, absolutely. Absolutely. They weren't able to control their borders. They were very friendly, great, tribe, But then, we're not all responsible for this, but, Andrew Jackson is, the founder of the Democratic Party. He did the Cherokee Trail of Tears. Yep. And illegally, unconstitutionally stole their land, killed them, and then they held lotteries for the voters that voted for the Democrats for the, Indian removal for the Cherokee Trail of Tears. They held lotteries, and they, if you pulled the right number out of the hat, you got a free farm stolen from a Cherokee farm owner. What's the worst thing that ever happened to the native Texans? The first really bad thing that happened to them was Spanish immigration. And across the very same border, across the Rio Grande that's happening today, and they took away their lands and killed them and introduced diseases, which is supposedly something that never happens, that wiped them out. Then later, the Mexicans took it over. Then what's the worst thing that ever happened to Mexicans in Texas? It was, white American immigration into Texas. Took the land away from them, kicked them off, killed a bunch, and the same thing happened in California. The Indians, had problems with immigration from the Spanish, and then the, Mexicans that took it over had their biggest problem was American whites immigrating into California during the gold rush, and then they kicked them out. And so everything that they say is not true. That's the only history you really have. About the only positive immigration that we've had in our history is when we bring in people who are going to be economically productive and like our system. They don't want to be English anymore. They don't want to be Germans anymore, French anymore, or Japanese anymore. They like the American system. And so they're coming to the American system and they have skills. That works out wonderful. But it's been basically a negative besides that, and it's just not the United States. Look at Mexico. They were wiped out by diseases that the white settlers, the white immigrants, brought into Mexico in the 1500s. Why is this not being talked about?
Oh, it's not politically correct, Dana. Dana, I've never understood people who want to import poverty, crime, and disease into our country.
Yep.
And those are the byproducts of this mass immigration of the poor. And I agree with everything what you were saying about assimilating into our society. One of the races that I believe has assimilated the best into our society is the Chinese.
Yes.
And one of the things that I've noticed about many Chinese people is they have taken on English names. Okay? There is a school not far from here, Cherry Hill East High School. They have a fantastic music program there. My God, they have a whole string orchestra of about 70 students in it. And the majority, I wouldn't say majority, I would say half of this string orchestra is or people of Oriental descent. And when you look in the program, you know, where they have all their names in the programs, their names is Sue and Bob and Kim and Sam and John and Rick. They've assimilated to the point where many of them take European or English-sounding names because they know how to be successful, or one of the keys to being successful in this country is you assimilate and you come here to produce part of the American dream. Not steal somebody else's wealth, but to become part of the American dream. And they get into businesses, they start businesses, they get an education, versus a lot of people who think, wow, it's so chic, it's so hip to hold on to names that, frankly, the majority of the people cannot pronounce. Or people who are here that give their children names that are difficult for people to pronounce. I mean, let's give kids a strike even before they are out of school. Let's give them the name. Let's give them a name that people don't recognize, can't pronounce, are embarrassed trying to pronounce. So you tend to shy away from that person.
That's absolutely. It's probably, I grew up in San Francisco, which probably at that time had the highest Chinese population in the United States. And so I've been surrounded by Chinese people and a lot of other Asian, Vietnamese, Japanese, etc. And what you say is absolutely true. They still have their name. If you look at their driver's license, because, a lot of them were born in China, they still have,
they still have their name, but when you ask them the name, they'll say, well, my name is Doug. Or it's
exactly. They pick their name. They just it's sort of nice that they get to say, what name do I like? Well, I think I like Cindy, or I like Helen, whatever it is.
I just Dana, I just bought a car not too long ago, back in the summertime. The man's name is Peter Shin. Okay? But that wasn't his real name. Shin was his name, but it wasn't Peter. And he told me what his real name is. He was Korean. But he was a car salesman. He knew that if he used his real name, people wouldn't identify with him. And that he was very successful, been in the automobile industry. The man was in his 40s, all his adult life. He's very successful, good salesman.
Right. And I did business in Silicon Valley with someone. His name was Harry Shin.
Might have been Peter's brother. I don't know.
and he totally enjoyed his name.
Yeah.
I don't know whether he picked it or his parents just did, put together Harry and Shin. But yes, yeah. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, so, and again, you see this in our country. The names parents give some of their kids, I want to say, let's put your kid behind the 8 ball. Okay? Let's make it difficult for them in their life. And I don't know. It just, some things just make me shake my head and go, I don't know. But it's a liberal, I think, the liberal mindset. So you got, mass immigration. importing poverty, crime, and disease. And when you talk about disease, Dana, do you remember a couple of years ago when all these children were coming into our southern border unaccompanied? They're being thrown into schools, and kids in the schools were getting sick, and they had no idea what was, what the illness was.
And it's not as bad as it was in the past. It was the worst was a couple of 100 years ago, where it just like in Baja California, which I've extensively traveled on the ground, it just wiped them out. And the people that were wiping them out weren't trying to do it. It was the Jesuits that came in, and they would get together 1,000 people into a mission, and 5 years later, 70 would still be alive.
Yeah.
They just shut the mission down because everyone had died from these unintentional diseases that the whites gave to the native Mexicans. And
Cortez came here, I don't know, with 50 men, wiped out much of the Inca Empire. Dana, break time once again, and you are listening to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Dana Allen and yours truly, Rick Trader, coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network at WNJC 1360 in Philadelphia and around the world on the internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, AM, FM 24/7. On the other side, we'll be speaking with Trevor Loudon, and we'll be talking about what, Dana? I guess we put Dana on hold. We'll find out when we get back. Be right back.
This is Rick Trader, host of the Conservative Commandos radio show.
And I'm John Forsyth, owner of WNJC Radio. Fellow patriots, the Conservative Commandos radio show is for conservatives, about conservatives, and by conservatives.
We are patriots who want to take our country back from the likes of Barack Obama, Harry Reid, George Soros, and Nancy Pelosi.
But we can't keep up this fight without your critical support today. Can you help? Please go to www.helpccrs.com right now and make a donation by credit card or PayPal. That's www.helpccrs.com.
Our goal is to expose the liberal agenda and distortions.
We are fighting to spread the truth about political issues, political leaders, and conservative issues and values.
Our hosts are not paid. In fact, we buy our own airtime, studio time, and pay our own expenses.
We created the show because we are trying to make a difference. So can you help the CCRS expose the truth in 2014 and beyond? Go to www.helpccrs.com.
Help keep the Conservative Commandos radio show on the air by going to www.helpccrs.com and make a donation today to return our country to the conservative roots created by our founding fathers.
This is Pastor Christina Lamanier, chaplain for the INRA.
And I'm her husband, J.D. Manier. We help co-host on the Conservative Commandos radio show, and we want to sincerely thank our listeners who turned out to vote en masse to elect Donald Trump, Governor Mike Pence, and conservative congressional candidates across our nation.
Against incredible odds, you helped create the strongest GOP team to take the reins of power in Washington since the 1920s. General George Patton said, "It's the unconquerable soul of man, not the nature of the weapon he uses, that ensures victory." We salute all of you for taking a stand for truth, freedom, and defending our constitutional form of government. Let us continue to pray for our nation and for God's blessings. May God save the United States of America.
What does it take to be the leader in production systems technology? To be the one company that solves production problems at any plant, for any product, and with any technology? It takes a 30-year record of success. It takes total mastery of complex technologies with a history of delivering success every time, without fail. Only one company can claim that high ground in manufacturing line optimization, data automation, and systems integration, and that's Philadelphia Control Systems. In factories worldwide, Philadelphia Control Systems programs, software, and engineering solutions deliver optimal performance and output flow with a record that can't be matched. Any plant, any product, any technology. Philadelphia Control Systems, the leader in production automation since 1982. 800-335-9811. PCS4automation.com. That's PCS, the number 4, automation.com.
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. We're establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired, as I am, about the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. on WNJC Radio 1360 a.m. or around the world on the internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our websites, ConservativeCommandosRadioNetwork.com and CCRN.com for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where even more newsmakers go to be heard. From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the internet. We're coming to you live from the CCRS studios. WNJC 1360. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard. You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
If you'd like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show, please check out our websites, ccrsnetwork.com and ccrshow.com. And at 11 p.m., log on to highplainsdailynews.com. And now you can listen to the Conservative Commandos from any phone by calling 832-999-1199. I had the great pleasure today to introduce Trevor Loudon, and also had the pleasure of meeting him at CPAC in 2016. He is an author, activist, and political researcher from Christchurch, New Zealand. His first book, Barack Obama and the Enemies Within, detailed the communist, socialist, and progressives who shaped and influenced the president from an early age and exposed his relationship with Van Jones. The Enemies Within is also made into a documentary movie, which is released this past year. Trevor is also the founder and editor of keywiki.org, a bipartisan knowledge base focusing primarily on corruption and the covert side of politics in the United States and globally. While particularly interested in the left, KeyWiki serves to expose covert politics on both the left and the right in the political spectrum. Trevor, welcome back to Conservative Commando.
Hi, Rick. Thanks for having me on. Hi, Dana.
Yeah, great to talk to you again. Your movie wasn't finished when we met at CPAC, which is about March of this year. When did you get it out to the market?
About two and a half months ago. We've been touring around the states, holding showings all over the country, and we have it out on what do you call it, Amazon Prime and that sort of thing. So we've really showing it as much as we can over the last couple of months.
Mm-hmm. Excellent, excellent. You know, something that the reason I'm so glad we're able to get you on today, that wanted me to bring you on, Trevor, is that when I watched the, sort of not the premiere, it was, parts of it that you'd already completed by then. It had a section about Keith Ellison. And I was just amazed because you have on video him basically admitting to being a communist and a Islamic radical, and they are planning to make him the chairman of the Democratic Party. And so, since you are an expert on him, you have all this material. I really wanted to get your take on that.
Yeah, well, the movie is actually called The Enemies Within, and people can find it on enemieswithinmovie.com. And what we do is really look at, we say there's at least 100 members of the House and 20 members of the Senate who are so enmeshed in neo-communism or Muslim Brotherhood front groups or both that they couldn't pass an FBI security check to drive a school bus. And Keith Ellison is the absolute epitome of the radical takeover of the Democratic Party, because he's got a long history with the communists, going right back to his university days. He was elected with communist help. He held fundraisers in the headquarters of the Minnesota Communist Party. He's even written for the Communist Party website. But he's also got extensive ties to the Muslim Brotherhood and its fronts like CARE and the Muslim Students Association and others. One Muslim Brotherhood front, which is basically Hamas operating in America, the Muslim American Society, even paid for his pilgrimage to Mecca in 2008, his Hajj. And so that was paid for by basically a terrorist front. So this is the guy who's got his foot in two totalitarian camps, communism and Islam. And this is the man they want to lead the Democratic Party into the next election. And that just shows how far the Democratic Party has slipped from the days of Harry Truman and JFK.
Right, because JFK was definitely an anti-communist, and his brother, Robert Kennedy, was a right-hand man to Joe McCarthy during the communist hearings during the 1950s. That's sort of censored today. They talk about Roy Cohn, but he had two assistants, and it's Roy Cohn and Robert Kennedy. And Robert Kennedy selected Joe McCarthy to be the godfather of his first son. Were you aware of that?
Yes, I was. And Roy Cohn actually was a friend and mentor to the current president, by the way, too.
Yes, that's true. He was the head lawyer to Donald Trump was Roy Cohn, but with Keith Ellison, don't you? You would think he'd be fearful that he's going to be exposed, with all these ties, but I don't sense that he is fearful at all. What do you think that?
Well, see, the Democratic Party, most moderate Democrats think that the Democrats lost because they were too radical and too way out, and it just got out of touch with the American public. But the actual party itself has been taken over so much by the left. They believe they lost the election because they were too moderate, because they weren't progressive enough, that Hillary Clinton wasn't obviously communist enough. So now they're just doubling down, and they don't care. They're going to unite the progressive base. They're going to declare war on Donald Trump and the Republicans, and they're going to do everything they can, legal and illegal, to sabotage his presidency. And so Keith Ellison is the perfect fit for them, and he doesn't care if he's exposed, because there are no moderate Democrats left at the higher levels of the party. There may be at the lower levels, but at the higher levels, it is all radical now. So he's amongst friends.
That makes sense. I mean, the fact that he is, probably going to be the chairman, and I don't think there's hardly any issues being raised within the Democratic Party elite about his background. And I saw a video that you.
Sorry, I'm not hearing you, Rick. I can't hear anything coming through.
Oh, I'm sorry. Good. Thanks for telling me. Can you hear me now? You can't hear me at all?
Yeah, Trevor, do you hear me?
Hear me, Rick?
Trevor, can you hear me?
No, I can't hear a thing.
All right.
Oh, my.
Let me try to... We'll call you back. We'll take a break right now and call you right back. And you are listening to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Dana Allen and yours truly, Rick Trader, coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network at WNJC 1360 in Philly and around the world on the internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, AM, FM 24/7. We'll remake our connection with Trevor Loudon and be right back.
They say I'm crazy. I really don't care. That's my prerogative. They say I'm nasty, but I...
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos radio network. We are establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired of the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos radio network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. and Saturdays from 2 to 6 p.m. on WNJC Radio, 1360 on your AM dial, or around the world on the internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our website, CCRSnetwork.com, for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where now even more newsmakers go to be heard.
This is Pastor Christina Lamanier, chaplain for the INRA.
And I'm her husband, J.D. Manier. We help co-host on the Conservative Commandos radio show, and we want to sincerely thank our listeners who turned out to vote en masse to elect Donald Trump, Governor Mike Pence, and conservative congressional candidates across our nation.
Against incredible odds, you helped create the strongest GOP team to take the reins of power in Washington since the 1920s. General George Patton said, "It's the unconquerable soul of man, not the nature of the weapon he uses, that ensures victory." We salute all of you for taking a stand for truth, freedom, and defending our constitutional form of government. Let us continue to pray for our nation and for God's blessings. May God save the United States of America.
You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Dana Allen and yours truly, Rick Trader. For rebroadcast of our shows, check out our websites, ccrshow.com or ccrsnetwork.com, or at 11 p.m. log on to highplainsdailynews.com, or you can hear our show any time of the day from your telephone by calling 832-999-1199. Our guest this segment is Trevor Loudon. He's an author, activist, and a political researcher, and his book is Barack Obama and the Enemy Within. His movie is The Enemy Within. Trevor, can you hear us now?
Yeah, I sure can.
All right. So we apologize for that little interruption. Dana, when you were speaking, I'm sorry, Trevor, when you were speaking with Dana, you said that as many as 100 members of Congress were either socialist or communist. What percentage of that 100 would you say are Republicans?
Well, the ones I'm talking about are all Democrats. You have a few Republicans, definitely, who are rhinos, progressive, big government guys, but the actual communists and a few Republicans are involved with the Muslim Brotherhood to some degree. But the real communist problem lies with the Democrats, because the infiltration has come through the labor unions and the labor unions are pretty much working with the Democrats now.
You know, Trevor, before we had you on, Dana and I was talking about Nancy Pelosi. You know, she was just reelected as the minority leader in the House of Representatives. And Dana and I were wondering about if this was really a good thing for the country that Nancy Pelosi was reelected. Because, you know, Nancy Pelosi says, quoting her, "I don't think people want a new direction. They like the direction that we're taking the country. The only problem is we're not getting our message out." And I wondered how you would fall on that. Is it a good thing that we keep people like Nancy Pelosi around and Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama around?
Look, absolutely not. You know, they're on a very dangerous direction, and they're so arrogant and so full of themselves that they believe they have the right to take America away from its founding values, and that people will support that. Well, their sycophants will support that, but the American public showed in the last election that they did not. They understood the Democrats' message very well, and if they really understood it, they would have voted even more against them. So it's not a messaging problem; it's a method problem. It's a philosophy problem. And Nancy Pelosi herself, you know, she couldn't pass a background check. She's so involved with the communists. It's just not funny. And so, you know, you got the two leaders in the House. You got Nancy Pelosi, maybe Keith Ellison, and then Chuck Schumer out of New York in the Senate, who's got ties to all sorts of radical groups himself. So the whole party is on the wrong direction.
Well, you know, Trevor, when you're talking about people like Keith Ellison, the fact that he may become the DNC chair, shouldn't that be a sign to the country how off course this Democrat Party is in dividing or showing a difference between the track that the Democrat Party is on and the track the rest of the country is taken?
Yeah, it is a very clear signal. But the thing is, the Democrats don't care because that's where they're at. And they just want to unite their base and double down, and they think that they can come back in 2020 led by probably Cory Booker or Elizabeth Warren or one of the Castro brothers, not the Cuban ones, the Mexican ones, who are equally as communist. They will. That's what they think. They think they've failed because they couldn't unite the progressive base. So now they're doubling down on that, and that's a very clear signal to the rest of this country that this Democratic Party is not interested in reforming, it's not interested in moderating, it's not interested in getting in touch with mainstream America. All it's interested in is this hard left, progressive agenda, and they are completely unrepentant about it.
Well, you know, you mentioned people like Elizabeth Warren and Cory Booker, but just this morning, Joe Biden said he hasn't ruled out running in 2020. So I don't. Do you maybe see a rift between the generations of Democrats? That the older generation of Democrats is still not ready to give up control, and the new generation of Democrats are very dangerous people themselves.
Well, yeah, but Joe Biden is another radical. He's worked with the old pro-Soviet communists for decades, but he's yesterday's man. You know, I think Joe Biden might like to think he might do that, and he might have had a chance if he'd run in this election. He couldn't have done worse than Hillary, but no, he's not going to be the standard bearer, and he might throw his hat in the ring. But you know, how many 17 Republicans threw their hat in this time? And how many of them did any good? You know, he's the symbol of yesterday's Democratic Party, and that wasn't good. But what's coming up will be far worse.
You know, Trevor, after watching your preview at CPAC, we talked a little bit about us, you know, AUN TV, publicizing your movie on our TV stations in California, and I'd love to do that. So after we're off the air, you know, we have another guest after this, but let's indeed get in touch on that. I didn't want to leave that out.
Yeah, and, sure, Dana. Yeah, I remember we had that discussion for sure.
Excellent, excellent. And you told me something, I told you that, how did you find out so much about communists and the way they operate? And you told me something fascinating, which was involved you going into libraries in New Zealand. Can you tell the listeners about that?
Well, it was more libraries in the United States, but there was some in New Zealand as well. But every town has its communist movement. It might only be a few people, but they usually control the local unions and often the local Democratic Party. But see, these guys are atheists, so that they want posterity. They want a memory left behind them. So when they get old, they gather all their papers up and they put them in collections and they donate them to a local library because they think somebody's going to come along in 100 years and write a wonderful story all about their great communist revolutionary life. So, but they think none of us are going to look at these papers, and they're very incriminating. They have minutes of meetings, and they have secret membership lists and all this kind of thing. So I just go into those libraries, and I copy thousands and thousands of pages. That's why I can prove that Nancy Pelosi has a communist history. That's why I can prove that Chuck Schumer has a radical history. That's why I can prove these allegations that I make, because I've got it all in black and white, and often in their own by their own hands. So that's how I prove what I say.
Wow, the first time I heard about you, and you're a hero to me, Trevor, is in regard to Frank Marshall Davis. You were basically the first person to figure out that the Frank in Barack Obama's autobiography that he mentioned like over 20 times, his mentor was Frank Marshall Davis, probably the most powerful Communist Party member in Hawaii. How did you find out about that?
That came from, I was looking at some Communist Party documents, and they spoke about a meeting they held up at the Tamiment Library, which is at NYU, New York University. It's where a lot of communists leave their papers. And I found an article where they talked about a meeting they had up there, and they were discussing Frank Marshall Davis, and they didn't say he was a communist at that point, but they said he was the mentor to the young Barack Obama, and this would be very significant in the future. Future historians will write about this relationship. So I studied, I could read between the lines, so I delved into Frank and Marshall Davis's background, and sure enough, he was a Communist Party member. We've got his Communist Party card. He joined the party in Chicago before he moved out to Hawaii. We've got all the evidence, and yep, he was a communist, and he mentored the current president for several years.
Wow. This something that I've always been very curious about, and because you're such a scholar in this area, I'd be really interested in your insights. When we talk about Keith Ellison, both a Muslim and a communist, but communists are atheists. That's their religion is atheism, and Muslims aren't. So it seems to be a contradiction, and yet in the Middle East we have Saddam Hussein was a socialist, the Ba'ath Socialist Party. Assad is the Ba'ath Socialist Party. Gaddafi, very strong communist connections. They claim to be Muslims. I'm not really sure if they are, or if they're just trying to fit into their culture. How do you see this huge conflict between being a Muslim and being a communist, and yet there are communist Muslims? I'd be fascinated on your take on this.
Yeah, and that's a very interesting question. And so if you look at the Black Lives Matter movement in America, that's a completely communist-controlled movement, 100% communist initiated and controlled. Yet how many young black kids rioting in Ferguson or Baltimore do you think understand that the communists control that movement? I would say virtually zero. Now, if you look at radical Islam, after the Russian Revolution, the communists had a whole bunch of Muslims in Uzbekistan and Turkmenistan and Kazakhstan, that they needed to control. So they didn't attack Islam. they infiltrated it. They took over the seminaries and the mosques, and they turned Islam into a front for communism. They turned it into a sort of a liberation Islam, like they have liberation theology in Christianity. And right up, the communists set up the Palestine Liberation Organization. They helped to set up Hamas and the Muslim Brotherhood. They also helped, the leader of Al-Qaeda now was trained by the KGB. So really what we know as radical Islam today is a front for the communists. It's a front for Moscow. It's Islam that has been weaponized against the West. And a lot of these terrorists, they think they're dying for Allah. But really, the people who train them know a lot better. They as Saddam Hussein was a communist who used Islam, Gaddafi was a communist who used Islam, and that is what radical Islam is today. It's a front for the communist movement, though many of the terrorists have no idea who they're working for.
Wow. It's sort of surprising they can fool people into it, who really are Muslims. But, and again, as you mentioned, you have the liberation Christian theology, which is, the same idea.
Well, how many good Catholics donate to their Lenten appeal, in their churches? Good solid Catholics give money to the Lenten appeal, all of which goes to Marxist causes. And how many of them know that?
Yeah, it's amazing. I've just been given the hard hook here because we're right up against this commercial break. But Trevor, thank you so much for coming on, and tell us once more again how people can get to your movie about the enemies within.
Sure, just go to enemieswithinmovie.com. Enemieswithinmovie.com. You can see a trailer, buy the DVD online there, or you can go to Amazon Prime and look for The Enemies Within and hire it or buy it online.
Excellent. Thank you again, Trevor, and we will put up your link on the Conservative Commando's website.
Thanks, Dana. Thanks, Rick. Good to see you guys.
Great talking with you, Trevor, and hope to see you down at CPAC.
Yeah, we'll be there. I'm pretty sure we will be.
And you are listening to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Dean Allen and yours truly, Rick Trader, coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network at WNJC 1360 in Philadelphia and around the world on the internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, AM, FM 24/7. Don't go away. On the other side, we'll be speaking with Steve Hecht about Guatemala holds the key to defeating illegal immigration. Interesting take. We'll be right back.
This is Rick Trader, host of the Conservative Commandos radio show.
And I'm John Forsyth, owner of WNJC Radio. Fellow Patriots, the Conservative Commandos radio show is for conservatives, about conservatives, and by conservatives.
We are patriots who want to take our country back from the likes of Barack Obama, Harry Reid, George Soros, and Nancy Pelosi.
But we can't keep up this fight without your critical support today. Can you help? Please go to www.helpccrs.com right now and make a donation by credit card or PayPal. That's www.helpccrs.com.
Our goal is to expose the liberal agenda and distortions.
We are fighting to spread the truth about political issues, political leaders, and conservative issues and values.
Our hosts are not paid. In fact, we buy our own airtime, studio time, and pay our own expenses.
We created the show because we are trying to make a difference. So can you help the CCRS expose the truth in 2014 and beyond? Go to www.helpccrs.com.
Help keep the Conservative Commandos radio show on the air by going to www.helpccrs.com and make a donation today to return our country to the conservative roots created by our founding fathers.
This is Pastor Christina Lamanier, chaplain for the INRA.
And I'm her husband, J.D. Manier. We help co-host on the Conservative Commandos radio show, and we want to sincerely thank our listeners who turned out to vote in mass to elect Donald Trump, Governor Mike Pence, and conservative congressional candidates across our nation.
Against incredible odds, you helped create the strongest GOP team to take the reins of power in Washington since the 1920s. General George Patton said, "It's the unconquerable soul of man, not the nature of the weapon he uses, that ensures victory." We salute all of you for taking a stand for truth, freedom, and defending our constitutional form of government. Let us continue to pray for our nation and for God's blessings. May God save the United States of America.
What does it take to be the leader in production systems technology? To be the one company that solves production problems at any plant, for any product, and with any technology? It takes a 30-year record of success. It takes total mastery of complex technologies with a history of delivering success every time, without fail. Only one company can claim that high ground in manufacturing line optimization, data automation, and systems integration, and that's Philadelphia Control Systems. In factories worldwide, Philadelphia Control Systems programs, software, and engineering solutions deliver optimal performance and output flow with a record that can't be matched. Any plant, any product, any technology. Philadelphia Control Systems, the leader in production automation since 1982. 800-335-9811. PCS4automation.com. That's PCS, the number 4, automation.com.
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos radio network. We're establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired, as I am, about the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos radio network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. on WNJC Radio 1360 a.m. or around the world on the internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our websites, ConservativeCommandosRadioNetwork.com and CCRN.com for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where even more newsmakers go to be heard. From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the internet. We're coming to you live from the CCRS studios. WNJC 1360. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard. You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
For a rebroadcast of today's show, please check out our website, ccrsnetwork.com. and ccrshow.com, or at 11 p.m. log on to highplains.dailynews.com. And you can also listen to the Conservative Commandos from any phone by calling 832-999-1199. I am pleased to introduce Steve Hecht. He is a graduate of Columbia University, a businessman who's lived in Guatemala since 1972. He's written widely about the country's politics and produced a mini documentary, From Hillary with Love, that details the Clinton-Obama role in imposing a collectivist regime in Guatemala. And today, Steve has written an article that's titled, Guatemala Holds the Key to Defeating Illegal Immigration. Steve, welcome to Conservative Commandos.
Thank you. Glad to be with you.
Good. Tell us about this article. What is... Oh, and by the way, I have your article up on AUN tv.com, the whole article, if people want to read it. Tell us about this article.
Well, it's really something that probably not too many people are aware of, that there are more Central Americans going to the United States illegally than there are Mexicans. And Guatemala is the jumping off point because of its 530-mile border with more than 130 crossing points, much more than that. It's easy to do. And Mexico can't control it. And it's very hard to get directly into Mexico, but it's fairly easy to get into Guatemala. And Guatemala, especially the rural areas where it borders Mexico, are ungoverned. They're ungovernable almost as a result of Obama policy.
You mentioned local armed gangs. Are those drug gangs or just ordinary gangs?
Well, they're both. Drugs are smuggled through here, I'm sure. It doesn't get much publicity, but it's logical that they would be because there's no law. And the other gangs are political, and they are descendants from the insurgency, the internal armed conflict that Guatemala endured for about 36 years, supported by, of course, Fidel Castro and Soviet Union, and some of these groups are. One of them, the main one, was created during that armed conflict, and of course the main armed conflict groups were dissolved in the peace accords of 1996, but their satellite organizations have survived.
Interesting. Now, you went to Columbia University, which is sort of the epicenter of liberalism in the United States. That's where Bill Clinton went, and also Barack Obama. How did you end up from there in living since 1972 in Guatemala?
Well, I was at Columbia University in 1968 when it made international news. It was taken over by collectivist radicals. So I got some education about how collectivist radicals organize and strategize while I was in college. And I happened to meet somebody from Guatemala, and I always had an interest in learning other cultures. And very frankly, if you really want to understand the United States, go live abroad for a while, and you'll have a whole different viewpoint of the United States.
Got you. And do you actually live in one of the dangerous areas in Guatemala?
No, I live in a very nice area of the capital city, and it's not dangerous. I lived in New York City for a long time, and I was probably at greater risk at Columbia University. Walk a few blocks and you're in some pretty bad neighborhood. I don't know how it is today, but
absolutely.
Back then,
I once walked from, you probably know where Penn Central is, and I walked from Penn Central to Jacob Javits Center once before Rudy Giuliani in a business suit. It's one of the most frightening things I ever did in my life.
Well, it's okay, but you shouldn't be wearing a business suit.
Yeah, well, today it's okay. Back then it was, I was taking my life into my own hands. Now, you get into there's ulterior motives in the way that the Obama, and Hillary Clinton have dealt with Guatemala. Tell us about that.
Sure. I don't know about what their motive is, because it makes absolutely no sense. What they've done in Guatemala is certainly not to the interest of the United States. In no way, shape, or form. And everything they say is the opposite of what they actually do. And what conclusions could you draw from that? I mean, I've seen radical collectivist strategies from the time I was in college, as I just mentioned, right up until recently. And it's easy to recognize once you understand it. And I can only say that Barack Obama is a collectivist radical.
Got you. We're going to go to a commercial break fairly soon, but before that, how can people, you've created a documentary from Hillary with Love that details this, what's going on there in terms of the relationship from the Obama administration and the Guatemalan government. How can people see that movie?
I'm going to go on the internet, and it doesn't cost anything. It's posted on YouTube. You just put in with Hillary, from Hillary with Love, and it'll come up.
Fantastic. Good. And, how do you think that Trump is going to affect this relationship?
I think Trump has the potential to be a game changer for Latin America if he understands, if his people understand what the opportunity is. Why is it as it is? If you know why it is as it is, you can have an idea how to turn it around. And ironically, Obama has planted the seeds for that.
Got you. Okay, good. Can you please hold with us while we go to a commercial break?
Sure.
Cool. We are coming to you live from Conservative Commando's radio studios, WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philadelphia, and around the world on the Internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, and AM FM 24/7. Please stay with us, and we'll be right back.
I'm crazy, I really don't care. That's my prerogative. They say I'm nasty, but I...
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos radio network. We are establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired of the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos radio network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. and Saturdays from 2 to 6 p.m. on WNJC Radio, 1360 on your AM dial, or around the world on the Internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our website, CCRSnetwork.com, for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where now even more newsmakers go to be heard.
This is Pastor Christina Lamanier, chaplain for the INRA.
And I'm her husband, J.D. Manier. We help co-host on the Conservative Commandos radio show, and we want to sincerely thank our listeners who turned out to vote in mass to elect Donald Trump, Governor Mike Pence, and conservative congressional candidates across our nation.
Against incredible odds, you helped create the strongest GOP team to take the reins of power in Washington since the 1920s. General George Patton said, "It's the unconquerable soul of man, not the nature of the weapon he uses, that ensures victory." We salute all of you for taking a stand for truth, freedom, and defending our constitutional form of government. Let us continue to pray for our nation and for God's blessings. May God save the United States of America.
You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Dana Allen and yours truly, Rick Trader. For rebroadcast, please check out our website, ccrshow.com or ccrsnetwork.com, or 11 p.m., log on to highplainsdailynews.com, or you can hear our show any time of the day from your telephone by calling 832-999-1199. Our guest is Steve Hecht. He is a businessman who lives in Guatemala, has lived there since 1972, and his movie is From Hillary with Love, and just the title, I want to see it. Steve, thanks for holding through that break. I appreciate your time.
Quite welcome.
Steve, in your article, you talk about the Obama administration's involvement in Central America, and that, in fact, Vice President Joe Biden made as many as 3 trips to Guatemala in 2014 and 2015. Why so many trips by a vice president?
How to summarize that is difficult, but Hillary Clinton put in an attorney general who protected all of the successors to the subversives, the guerrilla, and she attacked legitimate authority, and that's why the countryside got taken over by these radicals and the people repressed. And that woman did not get reappointed. It's a long story, so I'll just leave it at that. She didn't get reappointed, and they lost a certain amount of control, and they needed to figure out how to control it. So they had a commission whose head is appointed by the United Nations, and it's called Commission Against Impunity. And they needed a club, a threat. So Joe Biden came to Guatemala to impose on the Guatemalan government an extension of the UN Commission, which they then use to put the president in jail, and who knows whether he deserves it or not, but he's not going to get a fair trial. And and they intimidate Congress, they intimidate the courts, so that the Congress and the courts rule how they want them to. Now, of course, they wouldn't agree with my characterization right now, but that's what really is happening. And it was part of the takeover.
You know, and also in your story, you detail the Obama administration had this Alliance for Prosperity, and that they threw in almost $4 billion in funding. And what was that money for? Was that to try to help the region? Was that bribes? Would even $4 billion put a dent in the problems of that region?
Well, on the surface, it's stated a goal is to create conditions which would reduce illegal immigration. In other words, promote development so that people don't want to leave, which is what they should be doing, and it's a very good idea to do that. Except that, how do you get that amount of money? Now, it's not all allocated. It's on a yearly basis, but it's supposed to be a 5-year program. Now, how do you get from a Republican Congress, if you're Barack Obama, that kind of allocation? Well, you've got to promise that you're going to help develop the country. You got to promise to include the private sector in it. But they put all kinds of conditions in there that are buzzwords for radical collectivists, and the U.S. ambassador is part of approving whatever use of the money there is. And so they wanted to control it, but basically they used that money as a lever to impose their politics on these countries.
And Steve, I could see the importance of trying to do something in Guatemala. Again, referring to your article, you have that with a 540-mile border with more than 130 entry points into Mexico, and Mexico has proven incapable of stemming the flow of immigration heading north. And so it really points out the importance of Guatemala.
Absolutely.
Because to be honest with you, when I first looked at your article and saw the title, Guatemala holds the key to defeating illegal immigration, I'm thinking, Guatemala, why? And that's why I love having guests like you on, Steve, because people like you are my teacher. And so therefore I want to thank you for this, because it helps to educate me as to why Guatemala would be so important.
Well, I'm happy to help, and that's actually why I write the articles and why I talk to you on the radio, because I believe the public has a right to know, and I appreciate you helping the public learn about this. And what I could say about that particular point is that Guatemala, as the jumping off point, it cannot turn around unless the Guatemalan government is ready to apply the law to its territory. And if it does that, then it will be able to control those people coming from other countries. And there's plenty of that. There's more of that than there is of Guatemalans. And so you can't control it as it is today, but you will never control it unless you understand why it's not developed and what you have to do to develop it. And it's really not that difficult once you understand that and take a look at it.
Steve, you and Dana, before the break was talking a little bit about the future with the Trump administration. And you have in your article, instead of viewing Trump as an adversary, Latin American nations can work with his administration to bring development and stability to this region of the world. Steve, are you getting any hints as of yet coming out of the new or yet to be Trump administration as to are you encouraged that there you see signs, real physical signs or concrete signs that Donald Trump may understand this problem?
Well, yes and no. I mean, specifically no, because, I mean, they haven't taken over yet,
right,
and they're not giving a lot of policy prescriptions yet. They haven't even named the Secretary of State yet. But in general, yes. And the reason I say that is that Donald Trump's prescription for the United States is exactly what Latin America needs. I mean, if you look at the United States, the problem we have is crony capitalism. You got big government and huge companies. And these huge companies, they actually help Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton a lot more than Donald Trump, and he doesn't want their help, and he's denounced them. And he said he'll pay more taxes as an individual if that's what he has to do. In other words, he wants to break the chain between the special interests and the government. And he said so many times in so many speeches that he's the voice of the people and he wants to return power to the people. Meaning that the government has to represent everyone, can't just represent some specific interest. Now that's exactly the problem that Latin America has, but much, much worse than the United States, because the United States still has some rule of law, though Barack Obama has been trying to undermine that for 8 years, and hopefully we're going to recover some of it. But in Latin America, there has never been any rule of law. And in Guatemala, there certainly has never been. And so if the Guatemalans who have power, if they're willing to compete on the basis of price and quality of goods and services instead of through government power and connections, and they decentralize their public administration, which is essentially what Trump is talking about doing when he talks about getting rid of a lot of unnecessary regulations, this would create an economic boom in Latin America. And Trump is exactly the man to understand it. And that's what Latin Americans should understand. Don't look at it in terms of traditional right-left. Look at it in terms of Trump's whole philosophy is exactly right for Latin America. All you got to do is apply it.
Interesting. You know, the media in America encourages open borders, and it acts as if there's something wrong if a country doesn't have open borders, and yet, you know, we have some of the most open borders in the world, you know, whether we want it to be that way or not. You immigrated to Guatemala. Does Guatemala have open borders?
Guatemala, I mean, you know, if you're American, you don't need a visa to come to Guatemala. You just come in.
Wow, so it does for Americans.
That's it.
Wow, very, very, very interesting. You know, there's stories that when the Guatemalans try to go to the United States, that they're really badly treated going through Mexico. Are those stories actually true?
Yes, they are. And if you have money, and we wrote about this, I had some people that came down here, reporters, a couple of years ago. We interviewed a coyote, and I put it in an article that was published a few weeks ago. And that if you go with a coyote, a good one, the coyote is a human smuggler. If you go with a good one, you take no risk. If you go by yourself, you take a huge risk. And so the answer is yes and no.
And that depends on how much money you have, probably, right?
Yeah, like when we interviewed that smuggler, he was charging $6,000. Now, for a poor person, it's a lot of money, but of course they don't say cash up front. They have intricate networks, and the people can pay them over time. So they go to the United States, they work, and they pay off their smuggler.
I see. Now, a big part of this in your article is you talk about the fact that in a lot of the border areas that there is no rule of law. You know, basically the gangs control those areas. The government really isn't involved. And you get into some of the ideas of, you know, how this can be fixed. You know, how long do you think it would take for the Guatemalan government to regain control of these gang areas? And, you know, how do you think they should do it?
Well, it would only take them a few months. And they have the ability to do it. They just never done it because they don't have the political will to do it. And for the last 8 years, those gangs have been protected by the Obama administration.
Wow.
Wow. And why would the Obama... Oh, because they are communist collectivists.
Yeah, Obama's a radical collectivist. If you look at the strategy that they have here and the strategy they have in the United States, I mean, people don't like to hear it in the United States, but, you know, Black Lives Matter is not just a group that's trying to help black people. They do the opposite. It's a radicalization program.
Right.
You want to help black people, your model should be Dr. Martin Luther King.
That, you know, we were just talking, our earlier guest was Trevor Loudon. He's one of the experts on communism in the world. And he said that he has absolute proof, documentation, that the Black Lives Matters group totally controlled by communists. And here we have another guest on, 20 minutes later, and you're confirming the same thing. There's a lot of, I guess you call it conflicts of interest. And so you pointed out one in Guatemala and one here in the U.S. is that when you have poverty like you have in Detroit, well, Detroit used to vote Republican or about even. Today it votes 98% Democratic. And the reason is if you destroy the economy in an area, that will happen. So this has been fascinating talking to you, Steve. Thank you so much. And so you are calling us from Guatemala, is that correct?
Yes, I'm sitting right in Guatemala City right now as I speak to you.
Yeah. By any wild chance you know anyone named Sandy Montenegro? She lived in the same city.
No, it's a common last name, but no, I don't know her.
Oh, yeah, she went to Harvard Law School and so forth. Not law school, business school, and I knew her. Well, thanks again, Steve. Greatly appreciate you coming on. And we're going to wrap this up on the show. And we've had great guests today.
Steve, before you go, could you tell our audience how they can follow your work and read your articles?
Sure. At this moment, I'm still working on putting up a website, which should be up in the next few weeks. And you can see the documentary I produced. It's 21 minutes long by going to From Hillary with Love on YouTube. There's a Twitter page. Also, there's a Facebook page for the film.
Well, Steve, heck, I can't wait to see it. I'm going to watch it tonight.
Okay, well, that's great. And I appreciate you having me. And anytime, anything you need from here, you want to know anything else, let me know.
Well, thanks again. Take care. God bless. Dana, I want to thank you for sitting in today as my co-host. I want to thank Mr. John Forsyth, Jr. for working the boards. I also want to thank our guest, Trevor Loudon, and Steve Heck. But for right now, we're out of time. We got to run. We got to go. Take care. God bless. We'll see you tomorrow on the radio.